Welcome to Sober.Coffee, a weekly coffee chat sharing experience, strength, and hope for anyone on the sober road to recovery. You can download Sober.Coffee weekly on all podcast platforms and check us out on Instagram at Sober.Coffee Podcast and on Twitter at Sober.Coffee Pod. To learn more about us and to help support these sessions, visit online at Sober.Coffee. Here are your hosts, two guys on their own path to recovery, Mike and Glenn. Let's join them at the coffee shop.
At the coffee shop. Good morning, Glenn.
Hey, Mike.
Hey, how you doing?
How you doing, brother? I'm doing great, man. I got the extra large one here today.
Yes.
And I might get a second one.
I just might have to go. It's step 9 today, so yeah, I think I'll be going for a second one as well. Hey, can I mention the elephant in the room for a second?
Absolutely. Uh-oh.
I know, right?
Sure enough, man. Bring it on. Bring on the elephant.
No, it's all good. It's a pink elephant. It's good. So a couple things. First of all, the coffee shop that we're at. Truth be told, we're in a studio. We're at Audio Hive, and I want to shout out to Brian and all his efforts to bring this production into your automobiles and my automobile and my beach house and all the other places I get to listen to podcasts.
Wait, you have a beach house?
Well, it's a tent.
I was going to say, man,
it's named a beach house. It isn't actually a beach house.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, Brian, thanks, brother. Brian knows how to make chicken salad out of chicken shit.
Yeah, right. There you go.
They're technical podcast terms.
Yeah, it's good stuff. Good stuff.
So step 9, man, probably, I mean, we like to focus on keeping our sessions to like 18 minutes because that's the average length of time it takes to drink a cup of coffee. But this one may run a half a cup over.
What's that important?
Yeah, and it's I'm really looking forward to digging in on your step 9. I know you have some stories in motion. I can't wait to get updates on those. So, I mean, hey, apologies in advance if it goes 2 hours over.
That's right. Buckle up. Make sure your seatbelt's on. And
Buckle up.
Don't speed.
It.
Don't speed. So yeah, let's read it, I guess, right? So I've got it written as, we made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. Made direct amends. Wow.
It's amazing how one sentence can have so much power in it. So let's start with, I think, going back to step 8, some folks may not have heard step 8, but I love your definition of amends. I think we need to really, put that spotlight on that word, to give some clarity for the rest of the conversation here.
Yeah, absolutely. Because what my sponsor pointed out to me was it wasn't as simple as making an apology. It was making a direct amends. And I said, well, so what am I? I'm going to apologize. What up? What next? And he said, go look it up. That was his suggestion.
Oh, no.
Go look it up.
Homework.
Yeah. So I went to Google, the knower of all. And the definition that really resonated with me was, is to correct a mistake that one has made or a bad situation one has caused. So you're going in, is the way he explained it to me, is you're going in to make amends. You're going to correct the situation, or at least give your best attempt to correct the situation. And I'm certain we're going to talk about when sometimes those situations don't seem to have been corrected, but that's the goal, is to go in and try and correct a situation, not just to confess, and certainly not to blame our again, this was the guidance that I got from my sponsor is it was your actions, and maybe fueled by alcohol, but you've got to take responsibility for your actions. So it's good stuff.
Yeah, and just as a sidebar, do you ever notice how many times we use the word sponsor?
Yeah, right. And
we don't do this alone, man.
No, we don't do it alone. And I know that I've heard people call them different things: life coach, partner, buddy, dickheads sometimes, right? But yeah, sponsorship. For me, when we go back to step 1, and my literal first steps in the program, it was encouraged for me to work with another individual, another alcoholic, that have gone through the steps, and that they would guide me through it. And I committed to that relationship because sobriety was that important to me. I committed to that relationship, and So, yeah, shout out to my sponsor, by the way, who'll never listen to a podcast. He's got some 30 years of sobriety, which puts him at some 70-plus years of age. I don't know that he's in Podcastville, but Pete, I love you.
Awesome, man. And my sponsor, Timmy, he's probably too busy going to meetings to be on a podcast. But, all right, so that's amends, right? So, it's not just saying, hey, man, I'm sorry for stealing $100,000. It's... Right. How can I make it right?
And oh, by the way, hey, all right, how can I make it right?
And then next one is wherever possible, right? Mm-hmm. So there's some key words, right? Because there are some folks, who we have done damage to, where it's just not possible, right? We do graveside amends, right? Or we do, letters, to missing folks or whatever. I mean, there's a lot of tools, to do step 9. And then the next one is, again, this is where you need your sponsor's insight. You need that sober maturity. You need, just some strategy, right? And that's why, with step 8 and step 9, working with your sponsor, you get on a list and each one, right? Because sometimes, and again, I've seen people run to the races, run through the steps, or, hey, my sponsor's busy, I'm just going to go ahead and do this. And they really mess things up and actually make things worse, right? Because there are some times, and I have one that I haven't done yet. And there's specific reasons why I haven't done it. And there's a strategy because I don't want to injure them or others.
Right.
And it would. Or it has the potential to.
Yeah, you can't take those words too lightly.
Right.
Yeah, I agree.
Words matter.
Words matter.
All right, so let's dig in. You in step 8, you said you had what, 15 or so.
Yeah, I ended up going into step 9 again with and most of the people on my list, and I'd go so far as to say this, that I'm the rule, not the aberration, but or the exception, and that is that most of the people on my list have my last name, same last name, right? I mean, it was mom, dad, sister, brother, wife, child. And I had accumulated those folks really through my step 4 work, and then as I identified my character defects in step 6, that only magnified some of the events where I'd say, oh yeah, anger. I didn't think I had a problem with anger until step 6 when I really analyzed it. A lot of things. So then I get to step 8, step 9, and I go, yep, I hurt a person by my anger. Right. And again, notice, not by my alcoholism, and my alcohol abuse, but by my anger. That was really the root of the problem that I had to amend. So I was at a crossroad of, I had a list and I was ready to go. And then I was paralyzed by fear.
Wow. Well, so sitting here today, how many of those 15 have you actually done your step 9 with?
About half.
Okay.
And I'm okay with that. My sponsor's okay with that. And I think you bring up the point that timing, there's a couple of specific reasons with each one of those individuals that I haven't made direct amends to yet. And some of it is I've got some legwork still to do. I've got some living amends still to do. Not just walking the talk, but I've got some situational positions I feel I need to get myself in where I can execute that step 9 in the healthiest way. All that being said, we're going to talk in a couple of minutes because not only from guidance from my sponsor, but in addition to that, guidance from friends and like you that have encouraged me to go take a step even when I don't think I'm ready. So I certainly want to make. I probably am hesitating on some where I need a little encouragement. That's where working with others in the program helps because, for example, I'll tell a story here in a couple of minutes about an amends that I had to make, and I was standing in the parking lot with you, and we were talking, and I said, you said, why aren't you doing it now? And I couldn't even come up with a good lame excuse. And the next thing I know, I was executing on that within hours. So.
Yeah, you know what? So again, this is really the benefit of working this program. It's a we program. We don't program. It's no longer what we think, right? Mm-hmm. Because and I'm constantly reminded that my best thinking got me here, right? So it's really been beneficial and useful for me to get other people's opinion. And hey, you know what? Steps 8, 9, they are, and I'll share my story, but it's tough, because some of these are really raw, deep damage. Right. So it is tough to stand up and tackle it. And sometimes you need a little urging, you need a little courage.
Right.
You need some questioning, right?
Well, and here's the real beauty, just on that topic. The real beauty to me is you have no skin in the game of me making an amends with somebody else. Your only motive when we stood in that parking lot, as I reflected, your only motive was you're protective of my sobriety. Mm-hmm. That's it. So, Mike, buddy, go do this. Why? Why did you say to go do that? You've got no skin in the game, except for the fact you want to keep me. You want to do your part to keep me sober, and so I respect and appreciate that opinion.
Well, the reason why I did that is, and we talked about it in step 8. And I keep coming back to how you described it is, mounds of dirt, right? And how it's, I forget the exact word you used, suffocating or crushing. I think is the word we used. And I know how heavy that is on my soul, on me, on my emotions, my mental state. And I know that crap, that weight blocks, peace and serenity and all those fun words, right? So when I actually was talking to you, I could visibly see you processing it and stressing over it, right?
Sure.
And so what I know from facts, from my own experience and watching people in the program, is how freeing it is. Mm-hmm. And sometimes you need a little nudge into the deep end. And I was just, dude, I love you. And I'm just like, dude, here you are. Knees knocking a little bit on the side of the pool. Mm-hmm. Why? I mean, this shit works, right? So why? So that's why I said that, man. And because I could see it in you, and I just know how heavy this stuff is,
right? But look how the program works. You said it. I took the suggestion and acted on it, and it was, as you suggested, so relieving to me to go through the process. So the short, skinny, just a reminder is, I took the step. I picked up the phone. I made the call.
Right. So
right.
So
yes.
let's do a little backstory because I'm not even sure if I know the whole backstory.
Right.
Okay. So set up this one example of an amends that you're in the process of making. I think that's the right way.
Right.
To classify it. Let's set that up.
Sure. So, I had done, as I did my step 8 inventory, I'd done an awful lot of damage to a relationship with a person who shared my last name. And I knew there was hurt out there, but to what depth or degree or width, I had no idea. I just knew that there was separation in the relationship, unspoken separation. And so I stood in the parking lot with you and I shared that, and you said, well, dude, you gotta, you take the step, go sit down and be prepared to listen. And that's really what transpired. I put the olive branch out there. It was grabbed onto, and we went and had coffee. And what my sponsor and your wise words were, just listen. And so we framed it out, and I said, look, I'm not here to solve anything because I don't think it can happen over a cup of coffee and a bowl of soup at a fine Greek dining establishment. But maybe there's an opportunity for us to start. More importantly, maybe there's an opportunity for me to understand. That's how I framed it out. And with just that approach, dialogue began. And dialogue will bring you to the point of healing if you let it. And what I mean by that is, I just sat and listened, and there wasn't anything directly related to me, but there was analogies that were used that described feelings and emotions, and I knew specifically what he was talking about. He was talking about the pain I had caused to him. And instead of responding and saying, well, I did that because of this, or I did that because of that, I just listened. And the more I listened, the more he shared. and not in spite or hate, but in hurt and compassion. And where are we at? I haven't made my amends to him yet, but I'm in the process of making amends because now I know what I need to deal with. Now I've got a better handle on where his pain points are, and I can't rewind the clock and fix it, but I could certainly establish a new relationship with him based on things like trust and love. Right?
Yeah, that's awesome. In fact, one of the things that I'm taking a couple notes while you're sharing, I think that's so powerful. But I just wrote down what you're doing builds trust, right? But to wind it back a little bit, I love what you said. Many times, again, we run a lot of these playbooks through our own head. Our best thinking got us here. So I've learned not to necessarily have the ego, that everything I think is the way to do things, right? I've learned that's not the case. Right. But I really believe that we have no clue with the damage that we've done.
No, we don't.
We have a business case in our own heads, right? And well, they should have felt this way. And I did this. It wasn't that bad. And, but I'm all over 5 years sober, and I'm just learning of some of the damage that I've done. I'm just, my daughters are just starting to feel comfortable, or maybe they don't even realize it, but I'm seeing snippets of stuff that happened, right? Or I wasn't present, or I let them down, or I was missing, or whatever, right? I'm dealing with a guy right now, and he's got younger kids, like 8 and 11, and he's like, they'll never remember this. They're too young. I'm like, dude, you are absolutely clueless, man. To sit there with 2 weeks of sobriety and to be able to say, hey, here's the level of damage that I did, and they're not going to realize this. And it's clueless. Right.
And Glenn, isn't that exactly when we started out? You asked me, okay, you start out with 15. How you doing on that? I'm at half. Well, what about the other half? Why don't I just go knock that out this weekend? Right. Well, that's not the case, because I still have. You just hit the nail on the head. I still have. I've got to find out the depth of the pain, because my perception and their perception are colliding. So.
Yeah, and I really believe that's where listening comes in. Right? Because we believe that we have a clear picture as far as the damage that we did. But it really takes humility to sit there and listen. And I learned from that when you say, hey, I just went out and had coffee and listened. Right? And part of my rebuilding my relationships, and my amends was that word listen. Because it's not about us anymore. It's not about, about responding. Many of us are problem solvers, right? And hey, you say something, let me jump in with a solution. I know how to do it. I know how to fix it. That's not what this is about.
It's not what it's about.
Because it's not fixing it on my terms or your terms. It's fixing it on their terms. Right. On how they view the situation. And man, that takes humility. It takes listening.
You've got a great story about your step 8, 9 stuff that, mine was relational, yours was relational as well. Just to button mine up though, if I have to describe it now in experience, strength, and hope in summary, my experience was that I felt the separation, I felt the pain, and I knew that the relationship was damaged. Was it damaged beyond repair? The strength part of my journey said, you know what? That's out of my hands. Is it damaged beyond repair? This is now. I just need to do my part in making the amends, and the hope part of it is, I've got an opportunity now that I never had before to repair and restore a relationship that means a tremendous amount to me. Probably one of the most important relationships in my life. So that's my experience, strength, and hope in my scenario. So
let me ask you, so many, and I use the faith and fact dial, and we hear so many success stories in steps 8 and 9. But it's not 100%. It's not guaranteed,
right?
So what happens if this relationship, there's a listening session and then there's, more listening, more sharing. And the response is, hey, man, the bridge is burned. There are no amends. There's nothing that you can do to make this right.
Right. And I guess that's
then what happens?
I guess that's a possibility. And maybe as we continue to have coffees, there are scenarios that are probably going to play out that way. I got to tell you, so far I haven't lived that moment.
Right.
What I lived was when I left that parking lot, I got a genuine, deep hug that extended more than 3 seconds. To me, that it's
a little bit of facts right there, brother.
That's a lot of facts right there.
Yeah. But I've seen people, rarely, because I think what we're doing is so unique to human behavior.
Right.
To apologize and to say, hey, how can I make this right? You don't see that a lot out there, right? So it kind of catches some people off guard, right? And their response is usually genuine and understanding. But I have heard and seen some situations where it doesn't matter what is said. It doesn't matter what amends. I have seen unbelievable relationships, my own included, mended with children. But there's this one guy I know, he's 20 years sober, and he has not rebuilt that relationship with his kids.
Right.
So I don't know all the details. And he may totally be an asshole today, right? I don't know.
Right.
But he's very frustrated. But, it's the program. Again, it's our side of the street. It's what we focus on. We don't focus on their reaction.
Right.
We focus on our actions and making things right. And that's the win. Right. Now, it's always nice when the other side reciprocates.
Right.
But it's not guaranteed.
Can I put you on the spot, Glenn?
Absolutely.
Okay, great. So you've told the story to me before, and I'd love to hear it a little more in detail. But you sat across from a man who wasn't quite prepared to give you a big old hug at the end of your session. Do you know what I'm referring to?
No, I don't.
Okay. The Beatles said it well in their song called "The Tax Man." Come see the tax man.
Jeez.
Right.
Yeah. So
you want to tell your story about the tax man?
So my, my step 8, I had a work situation on there, and that was easy. And it's funny because, talking about that living amends, he had watched me on Facebook over 2+ years. So when I made that call, he's like, Glenn, look, man, I love you. He goes, I have watched you for the last 2+ years. He goes, dude, I get it. He goes, I understand, you're alcoholic. I understand you went and got help. He goes, nothing I respect more. He goes, that's amazing. He goes, let's work together again sometime. That's amazing. Secondly, with my ex-wife and my daughters, there was a long period of living amends. I changed. They saw change. They saw sobriety. They saw a different purpose in life, a different focus. So that was, with my ex-wife, I said, hey, I'd like to, part of my program, I'd like to take you out and sit you down and talk through things. And she stopped me. She goes, look, I love the change. I recognize the change. What you're doing for the daughters today are amazing. I don't need to sit down. She goes, I've already forgiven you. Okay. I'm like, okay, that was cool.
You got your hug.
Yeah. Then with my daughters, hey, that is still, I've sat down with both of them. I've gotten the hugs, rebuilding relationship, a lot of listening. It's no longer Glenn's ego in the room. So I've learned how to have relationships differently. I feel I have amazing relationships with my daughters today. I love the relationship I have. I love them. They are my purpose. But it's, it's still what I do today. Right. So referencing the tax man. So, I'm sitting down with my sponsor and we went down the list. I'm like, yeah, I've got the IRS on my list. I used to have a great tax strategy, and that was every time I got an envelope from the IRS, I just put it in the drawer and didn't even open it. For those that are listening, that's not a good strategy. So at the end of the day, I had my list, and I told my sponsor, I said, yeah, the IRS is on there. And he goes, well, how much do you owe them? I'm like, well, the last letter I opened was, $565,000, which, dude, I have no idea how that got to be that number, but, so he goes, okay, what are you going to do about it? I'm like, don't worry about it. I've got attorneys on it, which I did. But the attorney strategy, God love them, but the attorney strategy was, let's just keep juggling this around. Let's just keep, throwing smoke in the air. Nobody will really focus on anything. And, the IRS wasn't very responsive. They're a government agency, and I'm not going to stop there, but they weren't efficient. And right. So I had attorneys, and so that worked for about 6 months, and then watching facts of people in the program, I remember the day I called my sponsor up. I'm like, look, dude, let's talk about this IRS stuff. He goes, okay. He says, how's that going? I'm like, well, I said, what I told you was the truth. I said, I have attorneys working on it. I said, but, I really don't like where it's going. I just don't feel like I'm working the program right. I still feel the weight, like I see a black car on my street and I think it's, the IRS coming to pick me up.
4-door sedan.
Totally, man, with the government plates. But I mean, here I read articles, again, we're talking about the weight and crushing, right?
Sure.
And I read articles, they put people in jail for $300,000,
Right.
So I'm like, wow, so I called him, I said, hey, look, what I told you was the truth. I said, but I don't feel good about the truth, I said, I just don't like the games that are being played. I don't like the representation. I said, I just don't like it. He said, well, what are you going to do about it? I said, I am going to go see the IRS and visit them and sit down in front of them.
Proactively.
And he's like, you gotta be kidding me. Yeah. And I'm like, no, I said, I am. I think that's the right thing to do. And so I packed up all my stuff. I packed up my little briefcase, and at that time I took the vodka bottle out of it.
Good call.
And I'm sitting in the parking lot of the IRS, and I was going up to like the 8th floor or something. And I mean, I was sweating. I mean, but yet I had peace and I had faith in this program. And talk about making amends. I was going to make amends, and I didn't care what the outcome was. I mean, if they said, and I told my sponsor, I'm like, dude, if they put me in jail, come get me. He goes, I will. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know. You know how the head works. The head takes it everywhere, right? So I went in, and I told them who I was, and sat down. They're like, you're kidding me. I'm like, no. I sat down with the guy right across this little desk in this little ugly office. And I said, hey, here's what I'm going through. I said, I'm alcoholic. I said, a really tough road. I said, I hid from everything in my life, and I just told the story. I said, I've been in so many hospitalizations, so many programs. I said, I'm really deeply involved in AA right now. I said, and part of the AA program, said, make a list of people who I harmed. And I said, clearly, by owing this money, I'm harming the government. I'm harming the IRS. And so he says, he goes, okay. I said, then step 9 is make amends. And I laid out all my information. I had all my hospital bills, so, we're talking through it. I'm like, I don't know how I owe $565, but, I said, I don't really have a lot to defend that, and so he says to me, he says, well, the statute of limitations was like, 18 months away, mm-hmm. right? And statute of limitations means at that point in 18 months, I don't owe the money anymore, mm-hmm. right?
So you'd be thinking they'd get pretty aggressive as the clock is ticking. I'm
thinking next 18 months, I'm not going to have 10 cents. They're going to take every dime I've got. And, I mean, I didn't have anything anyhow. So he goes, okay. I mean, we talked for about a half an hour, and he goes, I'll be back. He comes back in about half an hour. Right.
So he leaves you sitting there for a half hour.
Oh, I'm thinking.
You're sweating.
I have no idea what's coming.
Right.
And I'm thinking, man, is she calling? Is he making arrangements?
Right.
What? Right. So he comes back, he sits down. He said, Glenn, he says, we think it's amazing that you came in and stood up and came in and sat down and want to resolve this. He goes, that's powerful. That says a lot. He goes, we recognize that. He goes, here's what we're going to do. We're going to put your account on uncollectible for 2 years. And I'm like, okay, cool. But then I'm like, at 2 years, then the weight just comes crushing back on me again. But then I said, wait a minute. I said, didn't you just say that in 18 months, that's a statute of limitations and I don't owe the money? He goes, yeah. I said, so when you look at it in 2 years, you're going to have nothing to look at. He goes, yeah, that's right. And I'm like, dude, I mean, I'm actually getting the chills sitting here right now. I mean, that was probably one of the most powerful things that happened to me in my program. And you know, of course, I got the, hey, you better not miss another filing. You better not miss another payment.
Don't even speed.
Yeah, you better be early filing everything, you know, going forward.
Right.
You better not, you know, have one shit stain. And I respected that.
Yeah, right.
You know, and I'm on good footing with them today. But man, I can't tell you the feeling that I had of weightlessness as I walked out of that building. I floated to my car. Sure. So that was crushing. I mean, just think of the mental weight every time I saw a black car on my street, you know, parked a couple houses down.
That's real.
I mean, every single time I'm like, when are they going to take money out of my checking account? When are they going to take my car? When are they going to block me from getting a job?
Omnipresent.
Oh, dude, I'm telling you, the head trash that went on from there. And I floated across that parking lot.
So you got 500,000 hugs that day.
565,000 hugs. And you know, I called my sponsor, man. I'm just like, dude, I just cannot believe the power of this program. And, you know, I talk about that faith and fact dial. That went from faith, man, that just ratcheted so much fact.
Right.
And, you know, no guarantees.
Right.
There are no guarantees. But doing the right thing, you know, and making the amends, you catch people off guard.
Right.
You really do, because this is not, I mean, people are used to hiding. The IRS is used to having people hide from them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, now I came in and sat down and I believed in the program. I had faith in the program. And man, in that situation, it worked.
Well, I love the conversation we had this morning because...
A little long.
Yeah, but well worth it. And you know, we had a couple of examples of step 8, 9 working, right? And, you know, I'm going to leave this breakfast realizing that, you know, it doesn't always work. That's not the point. The point is to do the work. The point is to do the work, to make the amends, and then give it up. Most times, most of the stories I hear from people in recovery who have worked step 8 and step 9, the outcome is favorable most times. Yeah,
so one thing I just want to tag on at the end here, and man, I know we're going to have a whole session on this, but it's forgiveness, right?
Right.
So you know, as I walked out of there being forgiven, and as I have been forgiven so much in steps 8 and step 9, as I live my life, it's so easy for me to forgive others. I mean, it's just, and during that process, it's just freeing.
Yeah.
You know, just the mental weight, the emotional weight, you know, and there's actually a story in the Bible, you know, where this king forgives this dude a lifetime worth of debt, right? And the dude goes across the street and he's crushing some other guy that owes him just a little bit of money, you know, and the king just, you know, absolutely came down and crushed him. So it's very clear to me that I've been forgiven a lot by God, you know, by people, you know, who I care for, by people that I just hurt. I might have not cared for them, but I hurt them, and I've been forgiven. So it's a lot freeing for me and easy for me to forgive other people. I mean, who am I? You know?
Right. I can't wait to have that session.
Yeah, let's have one on forgiveness, man. I think that's cool.
Yeah, that's cool. Hey, man, we're running a little late, but you got to run. I got to run. Yep. Thank you so much,
next
Glenn.
time,
Great
man.
stories, man.
All right, brother. See you later. Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining us for today's coffee chat. To contact the show, email us at podcast@Sober.Coffee. If you need immediate help, the AA hotline is 800-839-1686. The National Suicide Prevention Hotline is 800-273-8255. Remember, Mike and Glenn are sharing their own journey on the path to recovery. Any suggestions, medical or otherwise, are their own experiences and should not be viewed as professional advice. See you next week, and remember, there is a solution.